Yeah, I'm just so glad we have all these subscribers that really love our channel. Don't you? Oh shit, we just recorded that. Oh, well, hey, good evening, guys. Welcome once again to a lovely episode of Shooting the Shit. My name, as always, I'm your host, I'm Landsman, and as usual, on the other side, we got my buddy Z. Fun week, isn't it?
Yeah, good job, Tim Peel. Good, good introduction, buddy.
uh,
Watch out for that mic.
yeah, a hot mic's dangerous. I don't even have the mic like working. It's just sometimes you just gotta watch what you say. Clearly.
Oh man, you know what? He did what refs have been doing for years and years, and the old adage is just don't get caught. And Peely got caught.
He got caught with his hand in the cookie jar.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys are just tuning in or like have been living under a rock basically in the last 48 to 72 hours, Tim Peel, 53-year-old ref for the last 26 years, was officially fired from the NHL for having a hot mic. And if you guys don't know what a hot mic is, it's basically when you're caught, as we said, saying shit you shouldn't say when your mic is on. He basically essentially said that he wanted to call a penalty on Bleep in Nashville before a commercial break, and it was caught.
Yeah, he said there wasn't much there, but he called it anyway because, essentially, basically implying that it was a makeup call, which, long-term hockey fans, they know the way a game is managed by the refs. I mean, certainly Habs fans, like a lot of other fan bases, like to complain about the refing on a regular basis. Some
Oh,
of it
come
is
on,
valid,
ref.
some of it is not. But there is a reality that refs penalties tend to even out over time, which is probably not realistic because the reality is that Tampa Bay is a much better team than Ottawa, and they should be drawing way more penalties than Ottawa. But it just doesn't work that way, in a sense. So I think everyone sort of knows, kind of little secret that the way the game is managed, but it's just not talked about. And Peel got caught, and is it fair that he got? I guess he got banned. He's retiring at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, I was actually going to touch on that. He was literally just under a month away from his retirement. He was going to retire on April 24th of this year. Like he's got 1,343 games under his belt at the regular season play, and then.
Yeah, and I mean,
Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's fair?
No, I don't think it's fair. I think the NHL felt like they had to make an example out of him, but most people know that this is the way the game is managed. So the guy just got caught on the mic. I mean, it's unfortunate for him because he's obviously had a long and fairly successful career as a referee. He doesn't really stand out to me as a ref. Like he doesn't have Kerry Frazier's hair, although I know nobody goes helmetless anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Red
is it
ginger hair.
yeah, Wes Macaulay's animated penalty calls. Or Chris Lee's terrible officiating. So he doesn't stand out in any way, which is probably for a ref is probably a good thing if you're not standing out. It means you're probably doing your job, and I think it sucks for him that this is going to be what people remember him for. But him, for the rest of the year. But at the same time, it's just don't get caught, and he got caught. And now, it brings into question the whole reffing system and is it fair to manage a game? Is it fair to try to even out penalties? I mean, it doesn't always work that way. We've watched games over the last decades where penalties were skewed to one side or the other, and sometimes it's quite obvious. But otherwise, if there's two evenly matched teams on the ice, they try to balance out the penalties, and it's just a kind of unspoken rule of the game. Is it right? I don't know. I mean, do you think it's right that the game is managed and not called?
I think the game should be called as it stands, regardless if it's a blowout game. Unfortunately, sometimes it happens that the game gets out of reach, and so one team, say a team is down 8-0, they're going to be going more for the bodies than going for the goals. It just seems that it's like it was a bit harsh. I personally think it was a bit harsh on the Tim Peel decision because of the fact that this guy who's got 26 years of experience, though I do get their point, like you said, they are trying to make an example of him. It just sucks that it was like this close to his retirement, could have sailed off into the sunset, and then one lapse in judgment, and then he's fucked. He's gone.
Yeah.
I
I agree with
I
you.
feel like there's ways that you could officiate with a mic that's on at sometimes. Like you were talking about Wes McCauley. He is honestly the most entertaining ref. And that sounds like an oxymoron to say entertaining ref in the same sentence. But yeah.
Right. Don't get me wrong. Look, I like Wes McCauley, and I like the way he adds an entertainment element to just what is really kind of a very straightforward, dull profession of refereeing. But you like to a certain extent, you can't call an 8-0 game the same way you would call a 1-1 game because the stakes are higher. I get it. Do you want a trip to be called a trip regardless? Yes. But in terms of the rough stuff after a whistle, I think there needs to be some sort of human element to refereeing, right? In an 8-0 game, to your point, after the whistle, someone might look for a fight, look to be punching someone in the face, given the old, glove wash. But in a 1-1 game, there might be some temperatures that flare over and players pushing each other, and you don't want to necessarily call a penalty in that situation. But on the ice, a hook is a hook. A trip is a trip. You know what I mean? A cross-check is a cross-check. I think those type of things need to be called consistently, whether it's game 1 or game 82, whether it's minute 1 or minute 60. Yeah. But I can get the gray area of reffing, when it comes to roughing calls and certain amount of antics that occur on the game. But yeah, I'd like to see a game called fairly.
Yeah, that's and it seems like that those games are gone from the day and age that we used to watch where there would be fair game calling. Every time your team is losing and then the official calls a penalty against you, you're not going to be happy and you're going to blame the ref. It's, you look over your social medias, you look over any game tape, and that's what's going to happen. But, it should be a more balanced game.
I agree.
And the penalty should be called. It doesn't matter if your team is down 8-0. If you cross-check someone in front of your net and they're about to score to make it 9-0, you're going to get called for a cross-check. You don't go lenient just because.
But I think it needs to come from the NHL because I think players to a certain degree they're programmed a certain way that reffing is going to be called differently at the end of a game versus the beginning of a game, right? You could take that extra flash, one extra cross-check without getting a penalty called when it's, 2-2 and there's 3 minutes left. Now, if you overdo it, you slash a couple more times or you cross-check a couple more times, the ref will usually put up his hand. But I think, and that goes even doubly for the playoffs where the refs really put the whistles away in game 7s and elimination games and overtimes. So I think the NHL would need to come out and say, listen, we're calling game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals the same way we're going to call game 1 of the regular season. And you got to keep your sticks down. You got to keep your temperatures in check. You got your tempers, in check. They got to put the onus on the player because I think a ref inherently doesn't want to make a player, the scapegoat for a late game power play, an overtime power play, especially if it's like a little tap to the stick, a cross check in front of the net when people are battling for position. But really, some of those are legitimate penalties. And they got to call it. And especially if the guys lay in the lumber, I've seen Weber do it. Just whack, whack, Ben Sherratt too, whack, whack, And it's just like, if it was happening to Gallagher in the front of the net, I'd be losing my fucking mind, So I try to put myself in other fans' shoes when Weber or Sherratt are doing it. And it's just like, if you're going to call that, call it. That's all there is to it.
It's exactly like the goal that we talked about in episode 4, where we talked about the Gallagher disallowed goal against Ottawa. He was clearly interfered with. He was clearly cross-checked. There was no call because it was the end of the game.
Right.
He got the puck in the net, but they waved in a no goal, and because they claimed it was interference on the goalie. like there's the gray area, like the blue crease, the paint in front of the goalie. Yeah, if the goalie comes out of that blue paint, he's fair game. But doesn't mean you can take him out and just say, "Oh, well, he was not in the blue paint." I mean, yeah, I think that there should be a bit more of a equilibrium.
That's such a good situation to bring up, because I think we can all agree that Gallagher skated through the blue ice and interfered with Matt Murray. But yeah. Matt Murray had plenty of time to reset, and he didn't. And that's why the goal got called back. But the reality is, as you mentioned, Gallagher just got plowed. Like, it was clearly a penalty. And if the refs put up their arm with the delayed call, at the very least, it stops the game instead of resulting in this late goal that had to be called back. And it gives the Habs a legitimate power play going into the overtime, giving them a chance to win, because Gallagher earned it by battling hard in front of the net and eating a fucking cross-check. But they don't call it, because they don't call those type of penalties at the end of the game. Yeah. And really, I think the reality is what most fans want is consistency. And I think that even what brings to light is it's funny that Peel gets suspended for trying to even out a game and be consistent in the penalties, which is how I think most refs try to be. But the reality is that there isn't much consistency when it comes to ref.
Yeah, it's been like that way for years, though.
Really, the only way to be consistent, man, is if they call everything. I don't know. Do you agree or disagree? Should they not? Should they let stuff go?
No, I think everything should be called. And I mean, but an actual call, not like the call that Tim Peel made up. You should call everything that should be called. I mean, I'm thinking back of another incident, another non-call, and again against Gallagher, not in front of the net, however. But do you remember last year against Philly in the playoffs? The cross-check? He ate Matt Niskin's stick?
Right. Well, he broke his jaw.
Yeah. Do you remember the call?
His jaw.
Oh, Matt.
Do you remember the call? Fun fact, there was no call.
There was no call. Yeah. I think Niskanen got a suspension, though, right?
He got a one-gamer. He got a one-gamer.
Right.
But on the play itself.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Nothing. And that's ultimately, I think, what comes down to is that call it. Just call it, because fans are always going to be upset about the reffing. You said it yourself. Go on Twitter, But if you're going to call, Weber cross-checking Austin Matthews in front of the net, which they didn't, by the way, this year, right? Mm-hmm. They did not call that. Then you also need to call, Zdeno Chara cross-checking Jake Evans in front of the net. It shouldn't matter who the player is. It shouldn't matter who the person doing the cross-checking is. It shouldn't matter what time of the game it is. A cross-check is a hard cross-check, okay? Yeah, I get it. A little tap with the stick, maybe you don't call that a slashing. A hard slash to the stick that breaks it, or to the arm, call it a slash. That's a little bit more subjective. But the second a player really puts their hand like this, what are you planning to do with this?
There is intent. Intent.
What are you planning? You're planning on shooting the puck? Like you're going to cross-check someone.
Take a face
just don't allow players to put their sticks up like this. Like, they retrain players how to body and position, and goal scoring will go up, absolutely. But anyway, we're talking about changing a game that's been the same way for hundreds of years. It's a hard thing to change. So it's easy for us to sit here and speak to it. But.
Yeah. And we're two guys in the basement who have no real pull with the NHL. So who really cares about us? Anyways, let's switch gears. Let's talk about something quickly. Let's talk about the week that wasn't for Montreal. Like, we're going to talk on this really quickly because, we want to make it really apparent. Two players, as we all know, of the Montreal Canadiens, Yoel Armia and Jesperi Kotkaniemi, both tested positive for the COVID protocol. They're put on the COVID protocol list. And then Thursday morning, for you people listening at home, Marc Bergevin, general manager of the Habs, stated that one of them did, in fact, test positive for COVID. So that means basically, like, they said it 30 minutes before the game on Monday that the games that night was canceled. And then following that, every game, so Monday against Edmonton, Wednesday, Friday against Edmonton, and then Sunday against Ottawa, all out the window, gone, to be rescheduled after the May 8th season end, sorry. What do you think this means for the Habs? I mean, like, does this give them time to refresh? I mean, I would say, like, because we know that Toffoli was injured. Gives them time to recoup. Gives time for Weber, who may or may not be injured, to recoup. Gives time for them to rest their bodies. But it's also going to be 10 days without a game. And it's not an off week. It's not a bye week.
I mean, I agree with you. They can't. Here's the key: is they can't practice either. All their facilities are closed. So this is not a bye week. This is not a week where they could go in and sit with talk to Deschamps and practice things on the ice because he's a new coach, right? Like we had talked about the fact that he hasn't had that much practice time with the team. This is not that. He's not getting practice time with the team. So, my initial reaction was disappointment. Like, oh shit, Like I thought, I know the Vancouver series, they picked 3 out of 4, which we were great, which we were happy about and we thought was great. And I thought they played well, especially in the second game. And I was looking forward to the series against the Oilers. The Oilers are hot. I think, it was going to be a good challenge for the Habs. And if they had risen to the occasion and been able to grab, 4 or 5, 6 out of 6 points against the Oilers, I really think that would have propelled them down the stretch, especially with 4 games against Ottawa coming up that, Ottawa's an inferior team. Yes, they've played Montreal tough, but Montreal's picked up 60% of the points, 6 out of 10 against Ottawa so far. And who cares if Ottawa gets points? They're not a threat. So I just got to a point where I was looking forward to it, even though we had talked about the fact that it was going to be a challenge, But to your point, it is an opportunity for them to rest. We knew Danault. Danault's been beaten up. He's been on sort of day-to-day. Weber, whether or not he's injured or not, he's fucking tired. Like, it's pretty obvious,
It shows his game.
Exactly, And then, you mentioned Toffoli. But, an interesting thing that I will throw back at you, and I'll ask you this question is, this week off, it gives an interesting angle about, does Bergevin look at making a trade now? Like, I understand he mentioned today in the press conference that the salary cap makes it difficult, whatever, Bergevin. Okay, we know we don't want to look up the sleeve to see the guns that you got hiding up there. The old pipe bombs in the sleeve
The
busters.
Pipes and the sleeves, exactly.
Yeah, but you know what? He's been a guy who's not afraid to make a deal. This gives him some time if he brings a player in to have that player quarantine while there's no games happening. Do you think he makes a move or uses this opportunity to make a move or gives him a sense of urgency to make a move?
I think it does give him definite ammo to do so. I mean, they were saying in the statement earlier also, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that they said that the protocol for quarantine is 7 days, not 14.
You're correct.
So, no, absolutely. That gives them ample time to say, hey, well, I'm going to bring in this player. They're not going to play until next week now. It does give them the time. And there are some things that do need to be addressed, some holes that need to be plugged. I mean, we talked about it. Our offense is pretty good. We have a pretty good offense. And, like, even with the players that are, like, not playing every day, I'm not worried about that. The defense is where I start to worry. We talked about this. There's no consistency with defense, except for the line of the pairing. Of Jeff Petrie and Joel Edmondson. No, it's a revolving door for Shea Weber's partner. It's a revolving door of who is going to be that 6D. Is it going to be? Oh, today's going to be Mete. Tomorrow's going to be Willette. We're going to call up Gustav Olofsson. Like, I'm sorry, this is not a helpful team. It's something they need to address, and I think this is a good time. I think we will touch on that definitely closer to the trade deadline on April 12th. We'll definitely have an episode directly devoted to trade deadline. So yeah, no, I think if I were him, if I were in his shoes with giant pipe bombs, which I clearly do not have, giant sleeves, which I have a pasty whitey boy. No, I would try and pull off a move. They were saying Matthias Ekholm would be a good fit.
Right.
Though his salary is exactly.
The cost is prohibitive. But listen, I agree with you. I think it does give him. It makes it more of an easier decision to make a trade if he was going to make it. Now that he can bring a guy in, only has to quarantine 7 days, and he can get on the ice and join the team. I just think Bergevin is not willing to mortgage the future. So he's not giving up Kotkaniemi. He's not giving up Romanov. He's not giving up Suzuki. I think those 3 players are untouchable unless you start talking about, a Jack Eichel, which is not – this is not what he's looking for. I think the Habs are looking for a depth center. I don't know if they have that much faith in Jake Evans.
Just a little quick update for you guys. Since the recording of this episode on Thursday evening, the Montreal Canadiens have actually just acquired veteran Eric Stahl from the Buffalo Sabres. in exchange to get rid of a 3rd round and a 5th round draft pick in the 2021 draft. He's a cup winner. He's a leader. He's played over 1,000 games. Solid move, Bergie. Solid move. Cheers.
Especially as the games get more and more critical. Of course, on defense, they need a puck-moving left defenseman. Ultimately, they need. Here's the thing: they can play anyone with Petrie. Petrie's already proven to be a good pairing with Edmondson. He's, analytically, the Petrie Kulak pairing is one of the best in the league. So you got guys to play with Petrie, okay? But who are you playing with Weber? You mentioned the revolving door. They need a puck-moving defenseman. Ekholm would be amazing, but I think the cost is prohibitive. So who do they look at to bring in as a left D? And then that allows you to slot Sherratt into a 3rd pair to play with, Kulak
Romanov,
potentially,
Kulak.
Romanov. Depending on what you decide to do, or you could have Edmondson or maybe Sherratt or Edmondson are part of a deal, or even Kulak's part of a deal. I don't know why I like Kulak. You would keep him. But anyway, my point is that I do think this amps him up to make a trade. And I'm really curious to see if the Habs do anything.
So am I. And you know what, guys? We're going to make sure that we do talk about this for an entire episode because, well, it needs to be addressed, And I mean, this is fun for us. We enjoy it. So why not enjoy it with you guys too? We just want to note that we will be having some special guests in the coming weeks for some of our episodes. So stay tuned for that. I also want to let you guys know that we are noticing the comments on YouTube. We are very appreciative. And Christian, if you're listening, don't worry. I saw your comment and we're going to address that next episode. So guys, on that note, I thank you so much for, again, sticking this with it. It's tuning into us and our channel. We have fun. We're having fun. I mean, I am. Z, are you having fun?
This is what I look forward to all day. That's maybe a sad statement, but it's partially true.
I mean, it is. It's something to look forward to.
Hey, Davey, before we sign off here, quick question. Assuming the Habs come back, assuming that they're going to, I guess, roll into a 3-game series with Ottawa, let's just say no move is made because it's probably not being made. How do you feel about how they're going to roll through? They got to play Ottawa. The one, we haven't talked about it, but the one thing is they're going to have to make up these games likely, which means, as Bergevin mentioned today, 4 games potentially in 5 days, potentially at the end of the season. But let's get to that when it gets to that. Speaking into next week, if they play Ottawa, do you think the rest is going to benefit them, or is there going to be rusty? How do we see them doing against the Senators? That's kind of a final thought.
I say 2 out of 3 will go to overtime or shootout. That's for sure, because that's a given. But no, I honestly think that the rest will help them. I hope it will, because it just sucks to not have that time to work with your teammates to really talk about it. There's only so much you can do by watching tape alone in your place. But I'm optimistic. Though I will give the benefit to Ottawa, though they have been playing pretty much lights out since they put Philip Gustafson between the pipes.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about the fact that we thought Ottawa was going to be a team that just improves throughout the year because they're not playing for anything. Yep. They knew they were going to be bad. They knew they're young. They're having fun, and I think the Habs are going to be tight. They're going to be in a high stress situation here down the stretch because they're expected to make the playoffs. So I think they might be rusty. I don't have high hopes for that first game, but I do think the Habs will come out and play better. They're a better team than Ottawa, and they should start picking up points. And I'm hoping that this leads into kind of a resurgence down the stretch here where they can start picking up wins, actual regulation wins, to go along with this with their lack of regulation losses, which is great, but you got to also win in regulation. So anyways, I don't want to drone on and on here. Davey, I appreciate you answering that question, and actually I do have tons of fun doing this man. I really enjoy talking hockey with you. We've been talking about hockey for years, and having a chance to get on YouTube or when we share this on Twitter and Facebook, by the way, so you guys can comment there as well, not just on YouTube. It's just a lot of fun to share our thoughts and just have something that we're doing together here about something we love, which is the Habs and hockey. And it's really a passion for both of us, and I'm glad we get to share it, bud.
Same here, man. Same here. You know what? It's been definitely something to distract us with all that's going on in the world. So we are so thankful that you guys take the time to spend time with us. You know, I mean, we know that we're just two guys that want to have fun talking about hockey, but we also want to share with you guys. And if you guys want to share with us, that's totally cool too. We're not going to say put you away. We're not going to say no, because we're open-minded. You know, we'll talk about the Leafs. We'll talk about the Oilers. We don't care. We're open-minded. Anyways, on that note, guys, I'm going to say thanks again for tuning in with us this lovely episode. It's going to be with you guys shortly. We're going to have another episode this weekend. So, guys, on that note, I'm Landsman. He's Z. And I want to wish you guys a pleasant night. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay awesome.